And I'll be your moderator today. Thank you so much for joining us here at Netcom Learning, a market leader in promoting lifelong learning, training, and talent development solutions. We are very excited to host today's masterclass, Designing and Implementing DevOps Processes and Practices. And presenting today's topic is Mahesh Khulbe. Mahesh is a proficient Microsoft certified trainer and AWS authorized instructor with over 10 years of rich production and training experience in multiple Microsoft technologies, including Azure AI, machine learning, Azure security, Microsoft 365, PowerShell, Microsoft Exchange with Amazon Web Services. And he has a proven professional history of working on hybrid environments with on-premise data center, Azure, and AWS. Now, please bear in mind that this is still just an overview of a very robust topic. We do offer a collection of technical and business courses that can be tailored toward your specific requirements. If you're interested in a further discussion about any of those, you can make an appointment with our learning consultants through our website at www.netcomlearning.com. Today's session is also being recorded, so you will get free access to the recording in the next 24 hours via email. Netcom Learning helps customers build innovative learning organizations by achieving a smarter workforce, adopting change, and driving growth. And we do this with our broad catalog of offerings, developing customized learning plans, and our global delivery capabilities. Since 1998, we have been empowering organizations with our managed learning services to help them reach optimal performance results and address challenges. And we have 9 practice areas in which we specialize. They encompass people, process, and technology training. And today's presentation is from the application development practice area. Netcom Learning offers a comprehensive training portfolio for application development courses, and our upcoming classes include various training on AZ204, AZ400, AZ220, AI 101 or 102, and many more. And also private training to teams is available. Those learning plans can be customized to the specific needs of that audience. You can also access a variety of application development marketing assets, such as the free 2-hour training by clicking on the available webinar handout. And these offerings can also be found with a simple search on our website at www.netcomlearning.com. In this complimentary instructor-led power-packed session, you will learn how to prepare for Microsoft Azure DevOps Solutions AZ400 certification exam. And you will also learn how to design a container, build strategy, set up a release management workflow, implement deployment patterns, and optimize feedback mechanisms. Now, I'm just going to give you a quick overview of the logistics before we get started today. To start with, you have the option to control your window size. You can simply hit the escape key and find the zoom button at the top left corner of your GoToWebinar viewer. Everyone has been muted except for our presenters, but you can feel free to submit your questions you have for the presenters in the questions panel, and we will address them at the end of the session. Also, to get the best out of today's session, we have included the slides, courses we've talked about, and marketing assets in the handout section of the GoToWebinar viewer, and you can refer to those to get a better understanding of the topic. And now I'm going to go ahead and pass the time over to Mahesh to present today's topic. Mahesh, welcome. You should be able to share your screen. And thank you for joining us today. You are still muted. There we go.
Thank you. Thank you, Leila.
Thank you.
I hope I'm audible, and welcome everybody for this session, this webinar on designing and implementing DevOps processes and practices. So, like Leila mentioned, my name is Mahesh Khulbe, everybody. I welcome you to this webinar, and let me start with a brief overview of what I've done in past and what is my experience on which technologies I have worked. So I'm mostly into Azure. You can say Azure is my forte. I also work equally in AWS, but if compared with Azure and AWS, I'll always say that Azure is my forte, right? So in Azure, I've been working in both the production as well as in the training environment. I reinforce the knowledge that I've gained from the production work that I've done into the trainings that I'm delivering or the webinars that I'm presenting to. So This whole webinar is all around what actually is DevOps. So you'll be able to understand what DevOps is. You'll also be able to understand the basics of DevOps practices. You will also be able to understand how to implement a DevOps project into your own organization in your day-to-day work. Basically, it gives you a complete overview of what DevOps is, specifically related to Azure. Okay, so now as we'll move ahead with this webinar, you'll find out that DevOps is not just related to Azure or AWS or any other cloud. It can be created, it can be used by any organization by using any of the cloud platform. But this whole webinar is focused on Azure DevOps. So that's what we are going to focus upon. So once again, welcome back. What is the agenda for this webinar? What you see on your screen is the agenda for this particular webinar. These are the topics that we are going to cover one by one. So we'll start with what is DevOps. Most of us don't even know what DevOps is. So we'll go into the basics of DevOps, try to find out what DevOps is. Why do we use it? What is the use cases of having a DevOps environment built in our organization? We'll also talk about what kind of teams and what kind of organizational structure you will need when you go ahead with DevOps. We'll also try to find out how to identify a specific project and its metrics, including the KPIs or the key performance indicators that you can use within a DevOps project. We'll also talk about tool integration strategies, licensing management strategies. We'll also talk about how you can design a strategy for end-to-end traceability from work items to working software, how you can authenticate and how you can access Azure DevOps. We'll also talk about how you can integrate on-premises and cloud resources and how you can define a strategy around it. And finally, if you have any questions, you can come ahead and you can ask me those questions. Now, this webinar will not only be confined to this agenda. Obviously, we'll talk about, if the time allows, obviously, we'll talk about different aspects of DevOps. You might have questions which might be out of the scope of this webinar, so you can ask those questions in the chat window. You can always be interactive with me. So whenever you have any doubt in your mind which you would like to ask, you can always mention your question in the chat window and you can let me know. Okay. So without any further ado, let's start with what is DevOps. If you look at this word DevOps, it's a combination of two words. You can easily see two words in there, dev and ops. In other words, you can also say development and operations. Now, DevOps is not a product. It's not something that is a product that you can use. It's not a software that you can install on your system and you can use it. Some people have this notion about DevOps that you can install it like a product or a software. No, it's not. It's not a tool. It's not a product. It's not a software. It's not a group of people who are working on DevOps. It's not something, it's not kind of a framework that you can implement within your organization. In fact, it is a combination of all of these things. I'll give you an example. Let's suppose you are working in an organization where there are 10 people, okay? 2 of them are developers, 2 of them are QA, 2 of them are database administrators, 2 of them are, let's say, working on infrastructure, etc. You need these people, right? You need these people to, let's say, create an application from the scratch, right? You need developers to write applications code. You need QA to check that code. You need infrastructure guys to set up the infrastructure where your application will be hosted. You'll need maybe the database administrators to take care of the database services. You'll also need a project manager. You will also need a business analyst to gather the requirement from the businesses. So you have all these people who are working on, let's say, a project. Okay. Now you cannot call that team a DevOps team. Why you cannot call them? Because in order to become a DevOps team, these people have to come together and they have to use DevOps practices. Okay, they have to use continuous integration. They have to use continuous deployment. We'll talk about these terms later on. They have to use infrastructure as a code. They have to, work in a continuous cycle where they're, making changes to the code and then deploying it and then bringing new features to the application. So it's a continuous cycle on which all of those people together work. Now, these people, along with the process, are still cannot be called completely DevOps oriented, because then there are tools that you will be using, right? There will be products that you'll be using, which allows you to do this. For example, you might need to store your code, a code repository. repository. To do some testing, you might require some testing tools or code scanning tools. You need a build server to run builds on your code. You need infrastructure services. You need a platform such as a cloud platform to host your infrastructure, like your VMs or containers, etc. So if you look at it, DevOps is not just a singular entity. Instead, it's a union of people, processes, and products to enable continuous delivery of value to end users. So it's not a single entity, like I mentioned. It's when you collaborate with all the people, developers, QA, database administrators, by using the process which has been defined to, uh, continuously integrate your service, continuously develop your service with the right set of tools, which helps you attain that productivity, then that is known as DevOps. Okay. In other words, in simple language, you can say, if there is an application, if I start from the very beginning, let's suppose you are working in an organization. The organization has a business requirement, which is to develop a mobile application with certain features. Then that business requirement will come to the business analyst in your team. That business analyst will distribute the requirement to all the team members, developers, QAs, database administrator. They will start working on that. They will create a plan on how to work on that. They will implement a process so that they can continuously integrate, continuously develop, continuously take feedback. And then they start using DevOps tools to work on it. This whole process, this whole union of people, processes, and products are known as DevOps, okay, in general. Now, DevOps term in itself is not proprietary to any organization or any corporation. For example, Azure DevOps is proprietary to Microsoft, because Microsoft, by using DevOps practices, have created their own set of DevOps environment, which any organization can use. That is known as Azure DevOps. Similar to that, AWS has done the same thing. When you start using DevOps on AWS, that becomes AWS DevOps for you. When you start using DevOps by using Azure services, it becomes Azure DevOps for you. So DevOps is a generic term, but when you start using a specific platform to implement that, then it becomes Azure DevOps, AWS DevOps, Google Cloud DevOps, and so on and so forth. Okay. So when we start with DevOps, what is the first thing, or what is the first challenge that any organization will face? Well, you need to understand why there will be a need of DevOps. Let's suppose I am working with an organization, okay? And my organization is a typical traditional organization which have everything on premises. They use the typical process of, creating an application, hosting it on VMs, and there's a team which is working on that. The very first thing that is required to move to a DevOps-based approach is to identify a team which will work on that transformation, from the traditional processes to DevOps processes. So that identification of a team is really, really important. This team cannot be the team which is already working on your day-to-day operations, okay? You cannot have your current team which is working on operational issues, everyday operational issues, becoming your transformation team. You actually need a new team for this. Okay, most of the organizations which are going through a digital transformation, they prefer to have a brand new transformation team, or a set of team members which are focused only on the transformation, not on day-to-day operation activities. Okay, so that's the first challenge, to find the staff, okay, which is going to help you do the transformation without disrupting any current procedures and processes. Okay. So always create a team that is focused on the transformation. That should be their goal, because at the end of the day, you would like to achieve that digital transformation, that moving to DevOps within your organization. Okay, so that's the number one thing that we all need to do. So that transformation team should have one focus, should have one goal, which is doing the transformation. They should be well respected in their subject areas. You cannot afford members without sufficient knowledge. So they should be well versed, well trained on DevOps they want to achieve, and they should have the expertise to achieve that. Otherwise, they will not able to fulfill what you are expecting out of them. Okay, And they can be internal as well as external to the business. You can have transformation teams, including internal as well as external resources. It is possible. Okay, that is there. But the first step is identifying which team will help you out in doing that. Now, you might have seen many organizations, especially traditional organizations, what they do is they have traditional approach whenever it comes to, define a software development lifecycle. So you might have heard of a term called waterfall. Okay, a waterfall approach is a software development lifecycle. Now, if you are an organization, let's say, and if you're defining a software or an application, there should be a framework that you should define. There should be an approach that you should define, which allows you to create that application or software in a better manner. So traditionally, we used to have waterfall approach. Now, if you look at a waterfall, if you have been to a waterfall lately, you might have noticed that the water cannot flow upwards. Okay, it always flows down. So at no point you can push water back up because it's against the gravity, right? Similar to that, in waterfall approach in a software development lifecycle, you can start with gathering the requirements. You can work on those requirements, create the new features, develop them, test them by using QAs, and you are creating your software, you're creating your application. The goal is right in front of you, but you are going in a sequential manner. Okay, it's only one way. Not at any point of time you can go back. So for example, if you have developed your code and now you're in the testing phase, and now you want to return back and make some adjustment in the development phase, waterfall approach is not designed or is not well suited for that kind of, going back and forth kind of approach. So it's sequential in nature. It's one way. Although waterfall approach was good at that time, and many traditional organizations which haven't gone through any kind of digital transformation as of now are still using waterfall approach, but waterfall approach are usually very time consuming. So the end product or the end software that is created through a waterfall approach takes a lot of time. Now, and I know that we live in a world where applications changes frequently. Every now and then you see updates on Amazon.com. Every now and then you see updates on Facebook.com. Every now and then you see updates on any website or any applications that you might be using a lot, Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, whatever it is. Because frequent changes or bringing frequent features to your application is the need of the hour. No organization can compete with other organization if they are not providing good feature quickly. Okay, so waterfall approach, even though it's good enough, it's not good enough in the current situation where you have to quickly deliver features and products, or sometimes maybe even revert back those features and products from the customers. Therefore, Agile approach came into picture. Okay, so Agile is all about continual improvement. You're developing your code, you're going to testing, you found a bug, you go back to the development stage, you fix it, you come back again, found another bug, you fix it, go back. So there's a lot of back and forth going on in here, a lot of them, okay, which is good given the nature of our applications in today's world, which requires frequent updates. I mean, if I'm going to visit, let's say, Facebook.com today, okay, and Facebook did a feature change, let's say they did, they made some updates to the theme of the Facebook homepage, and majority of the user didn't like it, they have to revert it back. They have to make changes to their code base. This can be done when they have Agile approach. Okay. Similarly, if you look from the perspective of a business, okay, let's suppose there's a business requirement to do some modifications to an application. Now, by the time that modification has been completed, maybe the business requirements have changed. Okay. Or in the middle of implementing those features or requirements, the business says, no, we don't want it. We want to change it. That's what Agile can help you with. In Agile approach, it's not sequential in nature. We used to gather business requirements in Agile approach, and we used to work on iterations or sprints within it, so that everything that we would like to deploy, for example, let's suppose a feature to our application or an update to our application, we do that on the basis of releases and iterations. sprints. Okay, so iterations or sprints are basically weekly or bi-weekly in nature. So every week or every 2 weeks, we present that new features, and it can be, based upon the feedback of the customers or the business. It can be revoked or it can be released to all the application users. Okay, so here we are focused on shorter term outcomes rather than, if you compare it with waterfall approach. In waterfall approach, you know that there's a sequential process, and there will be a lot of time which will be spent on developing that feature into the application, and there's no going back in the middle of it. While agile is all about, what does the word agile actually means? The agility itself is defined in this approach. Okay, you can switch whenever you want. Now, from the perspective of DevOps cannot have waterfall approach. DevOps need to have an agile approach. That's one of the things about DevOps. So you might have an organization which is planning to have DevOps implemented in their day-to-day processes, but they are saying, no, we are not going ahead with the agile approach. They cannot have DevOps implemented. Why? Because agile approach is an integral part of DevOps. Okay, so if you're developing your application using DevOps, you have to use agile. That's when you get the best out of it. Okay. Now, if you have chosen agile as your approach, you have to define your organization structure. Okay. Now, traditionally, the organizational structure was defined into teams according to the software architecture. This is very interesting. You might have even noticed, if you're coming from the IT background, you might have even noticed about it. You remember we used to have teams such as administrators who are going to work on infrastructure. Okay, so there was a team of administrators. They are only going to work on infrastructure setup, setting up VM, setting up storage, setting up DNS, these kind of activities. Then there were developers, core developers. They used to have separate teams, right? Developers were only concerned about writing the code, nothing else. They have a dedicated team of developers, and they used to write code. They used to develop features and updates to their applications. Okay, then there used to be a team which is managing data. They were called as database administrators or data team. Similarly, QA team. So initially, we used to have these teams, and their work was focused upon the role they are performing, right? So let's suppose you are designing a UI, okay, for 3 applications. Let's call them email, voice, and TV. Traditionally, in horizontal team structure, one UI team will be working on these 3 different features, or you can call them individual entities or individual applications or individual projects, whatever you want to name it. So the same UI team was working on setting the UI of email, setting the UI of voice, setting the UI of TV. Okay. For service-oriented architecture, there was a team which was working on email, voice, TV, etc. There was one single team for email, voice, and TV for data as well. So these were horizontal team structures. In DevOps, horizontal team structures are not very friendly. Okay, we have the concept of vertical teams in here. Now, what does vertical teams implies in here? Vertical team says that, let's suppose if you have 50 people who are in UI team, instead of having 50 people on UI team, distribute them according to the feature or the application that you would like to develop. So why cannot we have 3 different teams of UI, each working on every application? So there is a UI team dedicatedly, let's say, of 12 to 15 people working only on email. There is another UI team which is only working on voice. There's another UI team which is only working on TV. So now in horizontal team structure, you saw that there was one big UI team working on multiple applications. In the vertical teams, we have multiple UI teams working on multiple different projects. What is the benefit of this? The lower approach or the vertical teams approach is more agile friendly. Okay, how? So if you look at the email team, it has a dedicated team for UI, SOA, and data. That means if anything is wrong with the email application, for instance, these 3 teams, UI, SOA, and data, will be responsible. However, if anything was wrong in the UI of email in here, this whole team was responsible for it. If you look at the horizontal team structure. Okay, so now what we are doing, we are categorizing our teams. Instead of having one single big team, which are focusing on all the applications, we have teams which are focusing on individual applications or individual features. Okay, and they are liable, they are accountable for them. This model is also known as segregating the teams into project basis. So the example that I gave you, we now have developers, QA, database administrators, infrastructure admins, etc., all in one single team. Okay, rather than having dedicated teams for them, they are now part of single teams. If you are already working on a DevOps project, you might have seen that you have, let's say, 2 developers, 2 QAs, 2 database administrators, 2 infrastructure admins. We have this combination of teams now, rather than teams divided on the basis of roles. This is very important because it is according to the Agile practices, and every team is now dedicated not to a role, but to an application or to a feature which they are developing. Okay. Any questions so far, anybody? If you have any questions, you can ask me in the chat window. Okay, moving on then. So the next thing is, so you have identified your transformation team. You know what is the difference between waterfall and an agile approach and why you should use agile approach. You also know the difference between horizontal and vertical teams and why vertical teams are more beneficial in here. The next thing is explore shared goals and define timelines. No project can work if you do not have clearly defined set of measurable outcomes. So, hey, I want to develop a feature. Let's say the business requirement is, let's develop this feature, XYZ feature. Okay, this particular statement doesn't have a clearly defined set of measurable outcome. For instance, this statement doesn't have, when do I want to finish implementing that feature? Or what do that feature would help me achieve in terms of my application's performance? So there is nothing which is measurable in here. Okay, so there should be measurable outcomes. For instance, you may want to reduce the time spent on fixing bugs by 60%. Let's suppose you have an application which has a lot of bugs, and each bug takes, for instance, let's say 1 hour to fix. You want to develop a process which can actually fix those bugs quickly, or maybe reduce the time spent on them by 60%. So that's a clearly defined set of measurable outcome. You know what you would like to achieve. In DevOps, you cannot be uncertain about what you would like to achieve. There should be a proper measurable outcome that should be there, which you would like to achieve. Or another example of that can be, you want to reduce the time spent on unplanned work by 70%. Every time you work on a project, here and there, you get this unplanned work coming out of nowhere, right? So that kind of unplanned work should reduce. That should be your measurable outcome. Reduce the out of hours work required by staff to no more than 10% of total working time. Okay, or maybe if you're working on production system, you would like to remove direct patching of all production system, and maybe you would like to automate it. These are all examples of clearly defined set of measurable outcomes. And when you are going ahead with DevOps, there should be a set of measurable outcome that you must have calculated or written somewhere. Okay. Always remember that whatever outcome that you would like to achieve, that should present some sort of value to the customer. So your outcome is in no way directly or indirectly helping a customer, and at the end of the day, it's not useful, right? So if you're working for a client, if you're working for a customer, your measurable outcome should make sense to your customers, first of all, and should provide some value to them. Okay. Now moving ahead, your measurable goals should have timelines that should be challenging yet achievable. So just having measurable outcomes is not enough. You should also define proper timelines to achieve them. So you may have a measurable outcome in mind. Maybe you would like to reduce all kind of manual work currently existing in your project. Okay, but you do not have a timeline for that. that doesn't make it a really good measurable outcome. You should have a defined timeline. By when do you want to achieve it? 1 week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 8 weeks? Most of the times, the timeline that you set should be challenging to you, okay, but achievable. So if something can be done in 1 week, try to do it in 3 to 4 days in a sprint. Okay, that's a challenging yet achievable kind of a goal. Okay, but if somebody is going to get completed only in 2 weeks and you are, mentioning 2 or 3 days for this, that's really challenging and that's probably not achievable at all. Okay, timeline should be a constant series of short-term goals, each clear and measurable. So when you define a timeline, and if you are trying to implement something which is going to take a long duration of time, you can divide it into smaller timelines with smaller goals, each clear and measurable. That is something that you can also do. For example, if you would like to automate everything within your current project, you first have to identify which particular components you would like to automate. Set a priority to them. Let's suppose you want to do infrastructure automation first. You want to deploy all the infrastructure which is currently deployed manually through a code now. You want to use infrastructure as a code. So that can be your first priority in the automation list. Then you can do automation of individual components. Then you can do automation of, let's say, code deployment. That way you can go ahead. So you have to, if you have a very big goal, distribute it or segregate it into smaller goals, each with a shorter timeline. So shorter timelines have advantages, easier to change plans or priorities when necessary. So when you have shorter timelines, what you can do, you can swap between the priorities, between the plans, okay? You can get, it invokes reduced delay between doing the work and getting feedback. So when you have shorter timelines, you quickly perform a work, you quickly get a feedback from your customer, and you know whether you want to go ahead or not. If you're waiting for a long duration of time, which was there in waterfall approach. In waterfall approach, to present a particular feature, we used to wait for like months. And after the end of it, when we used to present that feature to the customer, maybe at that time, the customer wasn't even interested in having that feature because customers' demands are regularly changing. We live in that kind of a world. So make your work short, timelines short, okay? Easier to keep organizational support when positive outcomes are apparent. So the third point in here, the third advantage of having shorter timeline is you can easily keep organizational support when positive outcomes are apparent. So you can see them. When you have shorter timelines, you can see whether you're going into the right direction or not, whether you're achieving those results or not. And then you can get the feedback from the customers. You can present that feedback to your organization, and you can continue working, continuously working on that. Okay. All right. So after you have clearly defined your measurable goals, okay, then you have to know what kind of a project you are working in. Okay. When we want to decide what kind of a project we are working with, we have to define two terms, greenfield and brownfield projects. Now, these two terms, greenfield and brownfield, are not native to IT or computer services. The origin of greenfield and brownfield came from construction of residential as well as commercial properties. So in terms of real estate, if you are creating a building or creating a real estate entity from the very scratch, then it is known as a greenfield project. So let's suppose you are creating a building, okay, and you just bought a piece of land and you're going to create a building on the top of it. That's an example of a greenfield project. A brownfield project simply means that you already have a building, but you have to do a lot of modifications to it. You want to make changes to that building, that existing building. Now, if you implement the same approach in an IT or a software project, a greenfield project means a totally new environment, maybe a new requirement from the customer, okay, that you are going to develop a new application from the scratch. That's a greenfield project. A brownfield project means there is already a lot of resources deployed. So you're somewhere in between of developing that application. You just want to make the process more better. Okay, so it's not really new. You're not starting from the very scratch. There's existing resources available, and you are just making it more better, and you are modifying it. Okay. Now, most organizations, and this is also one of the myths about DevOps, that DevOps is more suited for greenfield projects. Okay. Why? Because a greenfield project is a clean slate. Whatever you would like to do, you can do on the top of it. Okay. You can start with whatever you would like to have. In brownfield projects, however, you do not have much scope of changing. So it becomes a bit complex in a brownfield project. However, this is a wrong notion. It's a myth, right? DevOps is suitable for both greenfield as well as brownfield software projects, both of them. And time again, many organizations have proven it, that both greenfield as well as brownfield software projects are equally good enough when you are using a DevOps approach. Okay, so whether you're starting from the very scratch or you're working on an existing environment, both of them can be made, both of them can be equally, will be equally good in terms of using the DevOps approach. Okay. So when should you use a greenfield and a brownfield project? That might be a question that might arise. So greenfield projects, like I said, appears to be an easier starting point because you're starting from a clean slate. Okay, so you can implement everything the way you want. Now, I'll tell you a small incident about what is happening. So most people which start, and I've seen this in very many organizations which I've worked with in the past, and even now, that most of the organization starts with their DevOps project. They do not properly identify the transformation team. So they hire people who are not really expert on DevOps, and they start creating a greenfield project. Remember, in a greenfield project, everything can be changed according to your needs. So they start well, but after doing, let's say, 10 or 20% or 30% of the deployment through the DevOps, they realize now they have to make it secure as well. Now they have to make cost optimization as well. Basically, they have to include everything according to the best practices framework of cloud. Okay, so then things becomes really tricky from them. And then the existing people, they leave the organization and new people come in. And for those people, it becomes a brownfield project. Okay, and now the actual trouble starts. So the actual work which is done by the DevOps expert are on brownfields project because it demands a lot of work. You cannot make many changes in a brownfields project. You have to be really, really careful about what changes you are going to make. So although it seems really easy to work on a greenfield project, and it seems a bit difficult on brownfield project because it comes with its own baggage of technical debt, existing code bases, existing teams, etc. Remember, DevOps can be equally beneficial for both of them. It's just that you might need to work a bit more on brownfield project. Okay. So you know about greenfield and brownfield project, and now you can easily define whenever you are hired or whenever you work, or if you're in current scenario, if you are already working with any kind of project, you can easily define whether it's a greenfield project or a brownfield project. Okay. The next thing is identify project metrics and key performance indicators. Okay. How do you know what are the project metrics and what are the KPIs? Because these are the measurable performance indicators that you should know, right? So if you look at project metrics and KPIs, first thing is faster outcomes. When you're working with an agile approach, when you're working with DevOps, you need faster outcome. It's the need of the hour that you should have faster deployment frequency, faster deployment speed, deployment size should be big, and lead time should be as small as possible. What is deployment frequency? How frequently you are deploying new features. Deployment speed. So deployment speed is how quickly you are deploying the features, and deployment frequency is how often you are deploying that. Okay, how many times in a month? That's deployment frequency. Deployment size, how big is your deployment? And lead time. Lead time is basically the time taken from the creation of the requirement, or when you get the requirement till the completion of that requirement. That's lead time. So lead time should be as small as possible. Okay, so the time taken for you to gather the requirement from the business till the completion of that requirement is called lead time. So it should be as small as possible. You need faster outcomes. Efficiency. Your efficiency should be increased, and efficiency can be measured in many different metrics. Okay, it can be server to admin ratio. Maybe you have 5 servers, one admin per 5 servers as of now. So that's 1:5 ratio of your admin to servers. You may want to reduce it, okay, or you may want to increase it. You might want to say that no, our admins should work on more servers. Our efficiency should increase in terms of admin to server ratio or server to admin ratio. So more servers should be worked on by an admin, because that's how you increase your efficiency. Staff member to customer ratio. If one staff member is serving 100 of your customer, your DevOps processes should include such kind of modifications, such kind of efficiency that maybe one staff is now managing 500 customers. That's how you become efficient. Okay, application usage. How much application is being used? What is your application's performance? These are all metrics to measure the efficiency of your project. Then quality and security, that's another measure. Okay, so how many deployments are your deployment failure rate is an essential and a crucial component to measure your performance. Application failure rates, mean time to recover, how much time it is taking to recover from a failure. Bug report rates, higher the number of bugs, more time you will spend on fixing them, more time it will take to deploy the application with the new features. Test pass rate, defect escape rate, how much it is available, what is the availability, what is your SLA achievement, are you failing on your SLAs or not, and mean time to detection. These are all part of metrics which comes under quality and security. And culture. Culture, it may not seem like that to you, but culture is also really important. If your employees are with high morale and they work, they collaborate with each other, they live in a happy environment, then your DevOps is complemented by it. So all other metrics will be easily increased, or you can say that they can be easily made better if your employees' morale is high and if your retention rate is high, that you're keeping your employees. Okay. Once again, goals must be specific, measurable, and time-bound. So now that you know some basics of DevOps and its practices, okay, let's talk about DevOps in terms of Azure. Okay. Any questions so far, anybody? Anything that you would like to ask? So we're just scratching the surface of DevOps in here. Okay, when we talk about transformation team, when we talk about measurable outcomes, when we talk about AGILE, when we talk about, let's say, vertical teams, horizontal teams, we are just discussing few aspects of DevOps, not everything, just few aspects. When you start working on DevOps, okay, let's say you have the basic understanding of DevOps now, and you would like to start working on DevOps. Okay, and you would like to start a project which will use DevOps. Then you have to choose a platform which is providing you with the DevOps services. Okay, they're helping you create those measurable outcomes. They're helping you follow an agile methodology. They're helping you collaborate with your team members. They're helping you do your work planning. They're helping you keep your code in a secure place. These are all the requirements which you need to run a project according to DevOps requirements. So that's where you go to different platforms. And one of the platforms which provide you with these DevOps services and tools is Azure DevOps. Okay, so let's talk about what do you get in Azure DevOps. Well, in Azure DevOps, you get 5 major features. Okay, you can call them features. Each of them helping you solve one of the aspects, or helping you achieve one of the aspects of DevOps in general. Okay, let's start with Azure boards. This is the first component of Azure DevOps. Why do you need Azure DevOps? As you can see from the definition, it's an agile planning, work item tracking, visualization, and reporting tool. So if Agile is a part of DevOps, agile methodology, there should be some sort of a feature which allows you to work with Agile. That's what Azure Board is. Azure Board uses Agile methodology. It can also use Scrum, CMMI methodologies as well, but we are not going to talk about them. Basically, it uses Agile methodology to implement Agile kind of a planning where you can have all your work managed. So let's suppose you're developing an application. Each team members has some sort of work that they would like to perform. That work has to be mentioned somewhere, documented somewhere. That work should be visualized in some sort of, let's say, Kanban boards. The place where you can have that kind of system, that's what Azure Board is. So here you can document your work, you can visualize it, you can generate reports out of it, you can know which person has done how much work, how many hours they have put into their work. You can create user stories, you can create bugs, you can create issues, tasks, everything in Azure Boards. So it's a work management and planning tool within Azure DevOps. Okay. Second one is Azure Pipeline. One of the important aspects of DevOps is CI/CD. If you don't already know about it, it means continuous integration and continuous deployment. I told you DevOps is largely based on Agile methodology. Agile methodology says that we have to continuously make changes to our code, maybe revert it, maybe quickly fix the bugs, etc. These kind of tasks are there when you're developing an application or updating its features. So CI/CD means continuous integration, continuous deployment. In other words, whatever code you're writing, that has to be quickly checked for any kind of issues, syntax errors, compiling errors, etc. That's continuous integration that you're doing. Continuous deployment means if your code is free of any errors, compiling errors, syntax errors, or any kind of bugs within it, it should be continuously deployed. That means it should be continuously deployed to the virtual machines, containers, etc., where it will be where your application will be hosted. So this process of continuously integrating and continuously deploying is being done within DevOps, and specifically in Azure DevOps, it is achieved by using Azure Pipeline. Azure Pipeline allows you to do continuous integration and continuous deployment. You can create complex pipelines in here, which can take the code from a code repository, run build on the top of it, and deploy it to the end infrastructure, which can be VMs, containers, or anything else. Okay, so here you create pipelines. Azure repos, this is the place where you keep your code. When a developer is writing a code, that code has to be placed somewhere. Okay, that place is Azure repos. Now, Azure repos has its own set of features. It has version control. So if you make any changes to the code, a new version will be created, but you can always revert back to the original version or the previous version. That's one benefit of it. Okay, multiple users can simultaneously connect to Azure repos and commit the code to Azure repos. So generally speaking, Azure repos is the place where you can keep your code. It's a code repository based on Git. Okay. Then you have Azure Artifacts. Azure Artifact is the tool within Azure DevOps which you can use to do package management. So if you need some third-party packages, maybe Python, you're developing your application using Python, and you need certain Python packages to develop the application, then those packages can be imported and saved in Azure Artifacts. So it's a package management tool available in Azure DevOps. Okay. Now, for many of you, if you're not a developer, Azure repos, Azure Artifact might not make sense to you. Okay. But if you are a developer, then you know exactly for which purpose you might be using it. So repos for code repository, artifacts for package management. Okay. The final one is Azure Test Plans. Test plans are more suitable for QAs. Okay. People who do testing on the code. So here, QAs can create complex test plans. They can write test plans in here. They can write testing solutions in here, and they can use test plans for all their testing purposes. So that's the major 5 parts of Azure DevOps, which you will find in Azure DevOps that you can use. Each of them doing its own set of work. From a projects manager perspective or from a business analyst perspective, most of the work will be on Azure boards. From a DevOps or infrastructure guy perspective, most of the work will be on Azure pipeline or managing Azure repos, etc. Developers will be primarily concerned with Azure repos or Azure artifacts, and QAs will be concerned with Azure test plans. That's how you can segregate these features based upon the roles. Okay, but all in all people within a team should be aware of what all of these different tools does in Azure DevOps. Okay. Now moving on, any questions so far? Anybody? Please let me know. Okay, so if you're writing your question, I'm not able to see. So if you are mentioning your question, make sure it reaches to me so that I can answer them. All right, let's take this slide as well. Then we'll have a break as well. So how can you migrate or integrate your existing work management tools? If you remember, if I go to the previous slide, I told you that there is a work management tool called Azure Boards available in Azure DevOps, but you might already be managing your work items or your work through some third-party tools. Azure DevOps and GitHubs can support integration with your existing work management tools. For instance, Trello is a tool which is free, which many organizations are using. You can use Trello to integrate with Azure DevOps, particularly with Azure Boards, to manage your existing work items. I'll tell you about one of the projects in which I worked. I was working with an organization which was not using anything on DevOps. Okay, for their work management, they were using Task Planner. I think you might have seen Task Planner. It's a part of MS 365 where you can manage your tasks, right? So that's how they were managing it. So from Task Planner, you can also export all the data and put it into Azure DevOps. That kind of integration is also possible. So Trello is one tool by which you can do that. Then you might have heard of Jira. Jira is again a work management tool. So I hope somebody from the given group might have worked on Jira. It's very similar. Many organizations, many development-based organization, they use Jira a lot for their bug management, for their work item tracking, etc. So if you would like to do a migration from Jira to Azure DevOps, there's a tool that you can use called Solidify, which can help you do that migration. We also have many third-party organizations which can assist you with migration. We have AHA, Bugzilla, ClearQuest. Go read about them, and you can find out that they can actually help you do the migration. All right, so before we start with migrate or integrate existing test management tools, we'll like to take a break for, let's say, around 10 minutes. So off to you, Leela.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, we're going to take a quick break and we will start that break. And along with that break, we just want to ask you, we're going to launch a quick poll and we'd love to have your responses on that before you just take a minute to, get a drink, stretch your legs, and we'll see you back here in 10 minutes. Okay, welcome back everyone, and thank you for participating in the poll. We had like about 94% of everybody got a chance to answer, so we will go ahead and jump right back into our presentation. Mahesh, are you with us? I believe you're still muted. There we go.
Yes. Thank you, Leela. All right, so let's start where we left. Welcome back everybody after your break. So we were talking about what? DevOps, right? So coming back to the next slide, we just discussed about, prior to this slide, we just discussed about how you can migrate your existing work items and what are the different tools which are available which can do that. What about test plans, right? What about your test management tools? As a QA, that becomes really, really important to you, right? So I just told you that in Azure DevOps, you have Azure test plans, which you can use to track your sprints and milestone. Okay, there is also a feedback extension available in Visual Studio Marketplace that you can use, but that is not the only thing which is available to you as QA. Okay, you have other tools which is also supported by Azure DevOps, like Apache JMeter, which is an open source software written in Java. So you can also use Apache JMeter in Azure DevOps to do all kinds of load testing or measuring your performance, etc. Then there's another tool called Pester, which you can use specifically with PowerShell code. You can find out or you can test any kind of issues with your PowerShell code with the help of Pester. Then there's SOAP UI. If you are using any SOAP or REST APIs and you need testing of those APIs, you can use SOAP UI for that purpose. Okay, so these tools are also supported by Azure DevOps. Now let's talk about authorization and access strategy. How do you authorize to Azure DevOps? What is the way to authorize, or even to authenticate to Azure DevOps? Now, in order to authenticate to Azure DevOps, you have Microsoft account or Azure Active Directory by which you can authenticate to it. So your account should either be present on a Microsoft account, okay, or you should be a member or a guest on Azure Active Directory. That's the bare minimum requirement so that you can use Azure DevOps services. Okay. If you're coming from non-Microsoft tools, like you want to authenticate via Git, NuGet, or Xcode, since you do not have a Microsoft account or Azure Active Directory account in that scenario, what you can do instead is you can create a personal access token, which is supported by Microsoft Azure DevOps, to authenticate to Azure DevOps. Okay, not just that. After you authenticate, Azure DevOps has its own set of default security groups and permission. So if you ever get a chance to work on Azure DevOps, you'll find out that there is a set of security groups which are available in Azure DevOps. Within Azure DevOps, we have the concept of organizations and projects, within which you can define different groups like project collection administrators or project contributors or project readers, etc. These are predefined groups with predefined set of permissions which you can give to any user who becomes a member of these groups. Okay. When you start with AZ400 course, which is the official course for Azure DevOps, all of these things will be told in great detail. It will be explained in great detail in the course itself. Okay. So I would highly recommend that you go ahead with AZ400 course, which will essentially makes you a DevOps expert and to tell you everything about how you can implement authorization as well as authentication strategies. And it tells you everything about the security groups and permissions that we are discussing in here. Okay. We also have the concept of app access policies and conditional access policies. Now, as the name suggests, you can give access based upon different application, or you can give access based upon different condition. Maybe you would like to implement multi-factor authentication before somebody accesses Azure DevOps. That can be done through conditional access policies. Okay, so just like that, you can, on the top of access and authorization, you can also implement policies which governs how you access your Azure DevOps or the application hosted in Azure. Okay. What about the licenses? How much do you need to pay to work on Azure DevOps to Microsoft? Well, it turns out that if you have an open source project, okay, you get it for free. You don't have to pay even a single penny. If if you are working on an open source project. So open source projects are free for unlimited users, and you get unlimited build time in here, okay? But obviously, if you're working with an organization, you cannot use open source projects. So open source projects are good if you have to use a public Git repository where you're keeping your code. Okay, for those kind of purposes, it's completely free. So it's very similar to other open source DevOps solutions which are available. It's completely free for you if you are using an open source project. However, if you are not using an open source project, which in most of the scenarios you won't be because you're working in an internal project for your customer, then you can either go with small teams licensing, which is again free, but only up to 5 users. So there's a limitation in here. You can use Azure DevOps for free, but only when you have a team size of up to 5 people or up to 5 users. More than that, and you have to pay for it. Okay, there are some predefined resources which has been allocated to you. For example, you get a hosted job in Azure pipelines for 1,800 minutes per month in here, right? You get Azure boards in here. You get Azure repos in here. You get basically all the features that you would like to have in the free version in small teams. But the only limitation is you can only use it up to 5 users. So this is good if you would like to test something, if you are training, or if you are developing a small development environment or testing environment on Azure DevOps. For those kind of things, you can use the free version of it. But in all other scenarios, if you have a team size which extend beyond 5 users, then you have to start with the actual plan where you pay starting at $6 per user per month. Okay, so that's the plan which Microsoft gives to you. And in most of our scenarios, since I believe most of us are working in different organizations which have its own internal projects, we have to start with the third option available. The first two, we can use them for testing purpose, but in production, we have to go ahead with the third option. Okay. That was all, everybody. That was all in this particular slide. If you have any questions or queries, you can ask me. Any questions, queries that you have in your mind in Azure DevOps, you can let me know. Anything, anybody? Any doubts in your mind? Any questions that you seek? All right, then. So let me present one more slide to you, and let me tell you about everything about AZ400, which is the actual course that you will be performing if you are interested in DevOps Engineer Expert curriculum. Okay, so let me share that screen with you. Okay, so allow me a minute, and here we go. Okay, so I hope you are able to see my screen now. So this was basically an overview, or you can say a kind of a webinar on Azure DevOps to you, where we discussed about some of the basic things which are useful to kickstart your, you can say, it gives you a brief exposure to what Azure DevOps is. Again, Azure DevOps is much more than that, okay? It includes a lot of many components. It includes a lot many, you can say, services that you need to know. So it's not just limited to 1 or 2 hour of a webinar. It's really, really massive. It involves a lot of dedicated effort hours that you have to put. So I will highly recommend that you should go ahead and get certified with AZ400. And before I tell you why you should do that, let me give you the benefits that you'll reap out of it. First, if you do AZ400 certification, that makes you stand out from the normal infrastructure folks which do AZ104 or AZ900. So DevOps is there, and DevOps is in great demand. If AZ400 is mentioned in your resume, you will realize yourself that the worth of your resume is increasing. Okay, so DevOps is one of the most sought after certification in entire Azure, you can say, set of certifications. Okay, it's one of the most sought after certifications, and there's a huge demand for DevOps engineers, good and expert DevOps engineers, basically. So that's one of the most important benefits that you'll reap out of it. Second, it also enhances your pay package. So once you get a new skill, that is obviously help you getting the, it will obviously help you increase your pay package. That's for sure. That's certain, right? So that's first two benefits that you can reap out of AZ400. Also, when you do AZ400, you are also opening your avenues for other certifications. Maybe you can choose a new path. Maybe you can try doing maybe IoT specialty courseware, or maybe you went into machine learning. Okay, so there are multiple avenues that you can explore if you start with AZ400. So it's just the beginning. Doing AZ400 is just the beginning to a lot new avenues which might open up for you once you complete that certification. So I will highly recommend this. And I already told you the benefit of it, okay? But just to let you know, you stand out when you have this certification, or any Microsoft certification for that matter. Okay, so when you get a certification, what Microsoft offers to you is a specific badge. That badge can be shared on social media. It gives you a specific recognition that you have actually indeed completed that certification. Okay, your employer, your potential employer can also know that you are now certified in this technology, which ensures that you are an expert on that technology. Okay, so like I said, there is a component of pay increase when you do a certification. So you do earn more when you get certified, and it's tried and tested. Engineers all around the world who have certifications earn, in general speaking, more than the engineers which do not have a certification. Okay, they earn up to 20% more. And not only that, it also increases your employability. Like I said, your employers knows, your potential employers knows that you have done this certification, and everybody knows. I mean, even if you are working in IT, you might have seen that within your colleagues, that the colleagues who are getting certified, they're getting more promoted, or you can say they have more better opportunities even outside of your current organization. So everybody knows about it. It's not something that nobody is aware of. It's pretty clear, right? So these are the benefits of certification. Okay, let's talk about the data. So there is this book which is also available in your handout section, which you can read about it. In this book, you can see how trainings improves the productivity of your overall team. So your certified professionals within your team, your well-trained professionals within your team, increases the overall productivity of your staff. Okay, so as a trainer myself, I used to study, I have a goal myself. I'll tell you about my goals. You can also add me on LinkedIn, and you can find me doing certifications every 2 weeks. So for me, my goal is do a certification every 2 weeks, no matter what. If you want to survive in IT, you have to do the certifications, one certification at least 2 weeks. So I have now 11 certifications in Azure. I'm planning to do more in AWS. I'm planning to do Terraform. I already have it on Ansible. So there are so many different technologies that you can learn. And the more you learn about them, the more your benefits will increase, the same benefits that we have talked about. So make it a notion in your mind that if not 2 weeks, let's say that might be a very challenging goal for most of you, not for me, of course, but at least once in a month, you should do a certification. That's pretty achievable, although challenging, but pretty achievable goal that we can all set. So that's what I recommend. And that is what is there, which is mentioned in this book. You should do certifications and trainings, obviously, when you're in IT. So for developers, this is the path that you can choose. So if you are really a beginner in Azure, you don't know anything about Azure, there is the Azure fundamentals that you can start from. If you do not know anything about Azure, but want to learn specifically in terms or specifically in the fields of data, then Azure Data Fundamentals is there. Or if you want to pursue your career in AI, Azure AI Fundamentals is there. Any one of these 3 fundamentals on the left-hand side of the screen that you see, Master the Basics section, any one of them should be there if you would like to pursue the next stage, which is maybe you would like to start with Azure Developer Associate. for a developer, this is the very essential course that you should do. Okay. Then there is DevOps engineer expert, based upon which path you're choosing. It's all about your requirements in terms of what you would like to study. It's all about your interests. Okay, so you can choose any of these paths. You can go to IoT, you can go to AI, you can even become Azure Solution Architect Expert. Okay, which is, you can say, the topmost certification in Azure in terms of knowledge. And then you can start implementing that knowledge in your production environment, in your day-to-day projects. Okay, so that's the training journey for developers that you can see in this slide here. And like I said, if you are a manager or if you are leading a team, for you also, you can ask your team to go to these certifications, and this will enhance your overall team, and this will eventually help you improve your project's performance, its efficiency, and everything else. Okay, so when you do a training, you get real world use cases. So we give you use case scenarios by which you can relate how a specific technology can be utilized in your project. So we give you use case scenarios based upon our experiences. So that's there. That's something that that cannot be bought, right? Experiences cannot be bought at all. So that is something which is there in these trainings. And when you do this instructor-led classroom training with us, we also give you 180 days access to extensive virtual labs that you can do again and again and again. So repetition is the key to success. We give you ample amount of time to keep practicing your labs so that you become really good at it. We also give you 365 days access to the recording. So it's not like if you miss some lectures, you can always come back, you can watch the videos, and you can revisit whatever you have forgotten. Okay. You also get full access to Netcom 365 Learner Portal, which is the portal that will be given to you. You will sign in with your credentials over there. We'll provide you with those credentials. Free repeats are there. If you're not satisfied with the trainings, maybe, then you may get an opportunity of free repeats. And we also give you 24/7 priority support. So that's what is there when you do an instructor-led classroom training with Netcom. You can also renew your certifications. Maybe you already have a certification as of now, and it's just that it's expired because, like I said, in IT, technologies changes every other day. Okay, so maybe you would like to renew your expired certifications. That also is something that you can do. Here is some facts about renewals that you can read about. So when you renew, you are basically upgrading yourself to the new changes in the technologies. Maybe 2 years back, you were already an expert on it, but things change, especially in IT. So you have to be at par with the latest and the greatest changes and upgrades in your technical skills. Okay. So what are the requirements? If you have a valid Microsoft role-based or specialty certifications, you need approximately 6 months. Okay. So sorry, if it expires within 6 months, you can renew it. You will receive an email from Microsoft certification team 6 months prior to your certification expiration date. So let's suppose your certification is getting expired in the month of December. So by maybe July, you will receive a notification on your email that your certification is going to get expired, and you can renew it. So to renew your certification, you just have to do the associated assessment. You have to pass it before your certification expires, and it will be again renewed. Okay, right? So these are some of the facts about Microsoft certification renewals. Well, so the bottom line is, let's get trained and certified and get the best out of Microsoft and other trainings which is offered by Netcom Learning. That was all, ladies and gentlemen who have joined this training, this webinar. That's all. Off to you, Leela. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we are going to do a question answer session in just a moment. While you guys gather your thoughts and everything and get ready for that, we're going to take a quick moment and pass the presentations rights over to Sagnik. He is our vendor marketing manager. He's going to introduce some promotions and webinar related courses. Sagnik, are you with us today? I see you're up there.
Hey,
Sharing.
Wheeler.
Hey, how are
I'm
you?
here. I'm good. How you doing?
Good. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Is my screen visible?
It is.
Amazing. So I just take a few moments of time, from all our participants that are gathered here today. So we have put together, uh, a helpful resource for all the learners that have opted for today's masterclass on DevOps. And we are going to take this moment and opportunity to take all of our participants through what they can expect from this handout. So let's get started. First up, we'd like to announce that we have been selected as the winner of the 2022 Microsoft Learning Partner of the Year Award. It is a matter of great pride for us as Netcom Learning, the official partner for Microsoft, to be bestowed upon with this honor, because we were selected from more than 3,900 nominations across 100 countries worldwide. So this essentially makes us the top learning partner for authorized Microsoft training across the globe, and there is a reason for that. And today's session was just a preview of what you can expect in the full-fledged learning journeys that enterprises across corporate and government sector, choose us for, and that's what we invite all of you to explore with us. A few facts about Netcom Learning. We are in the industry, in the training industry, in the learning and development industry around North America, with global delivery capabilities for over 23 years now. We have been an authorized partner for Microsoft, and we have serviced more than 80% of the Fortune 1000 companies. More than 100 plus US military bases have been trained by us. We have over 14,000 plus enterprise customers, having trained more than 150,000 professionals. We enjoy a 96% recommendation rate from our learners and our enterprise clients. And through a portfolio of 1,000 plus certified instructors, we are uniquely positioned to meet all your authorized training goals when it comes to Microsoft, and even beyond Microsoft for that matter, because Netcom Learning is a powerhouse when it comes to authorized training with respect to the industry leading vendors across technology and business. So starting from, of course, Microsoft, we also have tie-ups of authorized training with AWS, Cisco, CommShare, Project Management Institute, if you're into the PMI set of certifications like the PMP and so on. We have authorized partner status with Axelos for the ITIL trainings. We provide trainings across EC Council, Red Hat, Adobe, and Autodesk as well. So as you can clearly see, no matter what your requirement is, because we understand and acknowledge the fact that no company is a single vendor house, right? You require multiple technologies across different solution providers, across different vendors. And the beauty of Netcom Learning is that we are your true end-to-end one-stop partner in the upskilling journey, because we have official partner status across the industries, across vendors. So whatever be your training needs, your skilling requirements, we have a solution for you to take advantage of. As part of this handout, you would receive the recording link as part of it. And so feel free to go through today's recording for reference and revisions. If you missed out or someone had registered and they couldn't participate and join us today, this slide is particularly relevant for them. Now, as an exclusive privilege for all our participants today, we are providing access to all the learners with our Netcom 365 portal access. So all the participants today, your portals have been created. All you need to do is use the registered email ID that you use to come in and attend the session, and activate your portals. Netcom 365 is a wealth of learning resources, wherein we have curated all the relevant resources, master classes, free learning assets, as well as opportunities for you to explore the authorized training offerings across vendors. So feel free to explore this session. You can take assessments from this portal. You can look into different technologies and understand and grow your knowledge as you continue in your learning journey. So we highly encourage all the learners today to go through this portal. And just a heads up, as part of today's participation benefits, Netcom Learning is also sponsoring the AZ400 Microsoft official courseware for all the participants, and you would be able to access that official material from Microsoft through our Netcom 365 portal. So it becomes very important for all the participants to go ahead and activate this portal. Also, you'd find your participation certificate as part of this. Let's quickly look at some of the latest offers on official Microsoft training and certifications that we have running. So first up, we have the Microsoft Skilling Program. It is our one-stop end-to-end enterprise upskilling program that covers the entire Microsoft training portfolio across Azure, Security, Microsoft 365, Dynamics 365, and Power Platform. One of the key benefits for enterprises, no matter their size, and no matter whether you are a corporate organization or a government organization, the Microsoft Skilling Program enables you to unlock up to 80% enterprise discounts on your learning plan deployment. So not only are our learning consultants going to support you understanding your needs and specific requirements and creating a highly optimized and efficient Microsoft Skilling plan for your organization across teams and roles, but we are also going to help enable you train more and more people in the most cost-effective manner through a lot of exclusive enterprise discounts that we are able to provide because of our authorized partner status with Microsoft. Of course, as we already have covered, you get exclusive access to the Netcom 365 portal, but we have a dedicated portal for the decision makers and managers and the leadership team within Netcom 365 that allows for a 360-degree view of the learner journeys for the managers and the leadership team to monitor and grow and plan their team's skilling journeys. So feel free to schedule a free session with us. Our advisors are going to guide you on the best solution and approach for your team based on your specific requirements and objectives. As rightly pointed out by our instructor today, that certifications are a critical aspect in a truly end-to-end learning journey. It never really ends until you have that sense of satisfaction and validation with that seal of approval right from the vendor itself, Microsoft, on the technologies that they are developing, that your employees are skilled enough to match the requirements of their workflows and job roles. And if you are an individual learner and you are the employee, it is all the more beneficial because it hugely enhances your career prospects when you add the credential of being a Microsoft certified professional. What we have here is a free offering. We have put together the win-win of certification official Microsoft ebook as a free offering for all our participants today. Feel free to go through that ebook. It is a wealth of resources in terms of what is the ROI of investing in certifications, what are the benefits, the tangible ones for both the employee as well as the employer. We highly encourage everyone to go through these and make sure that certifications are very important and they are very easy to maintain as well. As rightly pointed out by our instructor today, that the renewal process is free of cost. So basically, it is mostly a one-time investment, and then you can continue to maintain your certification absolutely free of cost The only thing that it requires is your investment in terms of time and efforts. Now, a special announcement for our government customers here today in the session. So we are aware that the government federal learning funds, they are going to be sealed by the end of September. And we want to help your organization, your teams, to maximize the benefit of learning through authorized trainings across Microsoft, AWS, Cisco, and all the vendors. So what we have is 3 amazing solutions that perfectly fit the requirements of our government clients, especially during this time of the year. These are great assets to maximize the training benefits for your employees and making the best utilization of your training funds. The first thing to note is that Netcom Learning is DoD 8140 compliant. So you are ensured that we are 100% compliant with all our instructors equipped with security clearances and government and military training experience. So you have that sense of satisfaction and that sense of security that you are in good hands. 3 options are there. First of all, there is the Learning Passport, wherein you can park your training funds and you get amazing benefits, up to 100% increase in your purchasing power in the training fund value that can be used across 12 months. So if you lock in your training funds for the entire year today, for 12 months, that fund would be valid with up to 100% incremental benefits on the total fund value of your training investments. Along with that, we also have some special pricing if you are interested in individual courses rather than going for an entire package like Learning Passport. We also have a Netcom Plus subscription for focused more towards learners who want to take access for 12 months, but within a limited set of courses. But it is highly cost effective because the entry point is only $2,999 per learner per year. And if you are coming with multiple requirements, so if you have a team that you want to train with more than 10 members, the pricing goes further down when you unlock the enterprise discounts. Now, this is an amazing opportunity for individual learners to pursue and continue their skilling journeys throughout the year. With over 350 authorized training classes, you are getting access to, including 60 official Microsoft courses. The Learning Passport, as I already mentioned, it is a flexible team training package. It unlocks the entire official Netcom Learning training portfolio across all the vendors. That means the funds that you invest as part of your Learning Passport are redeemable over 4,000 plus official courses across vendors, and they are flexible in terms of the fund validity as well as in who can opt for these trainings. So if you are a large organization with distributed branches across the globe, Learning Passport is your ideal solution. You can manage it centrally, move funds across regions, train as per the requirement, and train multiple people across roles, teams, and divisions. And as we rightly said, that the fund value is almost increased by up to 100%. We, as part of the handout, have also included the learning path for the Azure DevOps journey, and this has already been discussed by our instructor. All the links are hyperlinked here, so feel free to explore these and through the dedicated resources that we have available on our website and are directly hyperlinked to this PDF. We also encourage all our learners to take a free quiz assessment on the AZ 400 course. It is completely free of cost, and it gives you a reality check of where you stand with respect to how much requirement of a training and skilling is there. So if you are already confident about your skills, feel free to understand that whether you require the training or you can directly opt for the certification. And if you require the training, where do you stand from a knowledge perspective before getting in engaging in official talks with our advisors to guide you through the rest of the process. We also have similar masterclasses coming up, so feel free to register for these upcoming sessions. They are again free of cost, and they do come with exclusive access to official Microsoft courseware associated with those courses. Once again, before I hand over, I would like to remind all of our participants that when you opt for an official virtual instructor-led or in-person instructor-led training from Netcom Learning and Microsoft, on Microsoft, you get exclusive privileges like 180-day access to virtual labs for practicing and mastering your role-based skills, 365-day access to the class recordings of your sessions. So if you want to revise, you can do that. Full access to the Netcom 365 portal, along with opportunities of free class repeats. So if you felt that you were not able to grasp all the concepts, once you have paid, we provide you that opportunity of repeating the same class over the period of next 1 year in one of our public schedules. So with that, I would encourage all of our learners today to go through these resources and take advantage of the benefits of skilling on Microsoft Azure DevOps. With that, back to you, Leela. Thank you so much for your time. Leela, you there?
Yes, sorry, I wasn't sure if you were still talking or not.
It happens. Thank
Okay,
you so much.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. And we are going to go ahead and hop right into our question answer session. Let's see, the first question I have here is, how many certifications before you become a certified engineer? I'm guessing that, yeah.
So if it is about DevOps engineer, if you're specifically talking about, then only one certification. So anybody can directly do DevOps engineer expert certification. There's no mandatory requirements that you have to do fundamentals or Azure developer prior to that. So any Azure certification can be done by anybody without having any other certifications. Okay, so that's not it's not like you have to do some prerequisite certifications before you can become a DevOps engineer. No. However, it is recommended that you should do fundamentals and other, a beginner certification, because that will make you, that will enhance your knowledge in that specific subject. But if you believe that you're confident enough, you have already worked on that technology, you can straight away give the Azure DevOps engineer certification.
Thank you. Okay, our next question, what will be the use of Maven, NPM, and NuGet?
Sorry, I was on mute. So Maven, NPM, NuGet, these are all, you might have seen those in the Azure artifact section of the PPT. Okay, so when you would like to download any kind of packages, for example, I'll give you an example of Python language. Okay, now you cannot run every Python command directly unless you import Python packages or Python modules. Okay, similar to that, if you're writing in any other language, for example, if you're writing in .NET, you need some NuGet packages which supports the kind of development you're doing. Now, these packages has to be downloaded first. Okay, they're not there. So if you're developing on .NET, you need to download a related NuGet package. Those downloaded packages stays in Azure Artifacts. So Maven, NuGet, these are all packages that you're downloading and saving to Azure Artifacts, which helps you do the development based upon the languages that you're using. Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Our next question, how much test automation capabilities are within the pipeline and test plans?
Well, if you want a short and brief answer for that, a lot. Okay, so it can integrate with not just a lot of third-party tools. Microsoft Azure DevOps provides you a functionality to do your own kind of testing as well. So Dynamic scans, code scanning you can do load testing, you can do performance testing. All kinds of major testing can be done with Azure DevOps, okay, which includes everything from code scanning to syntax checking to, let's say, performance testing, load testing, everything is there, okay? So short and brief answer will be a lot.
Thank you. Okay, it looks like we've got a few more questions here. Once we do get through our questions, we will begin to wrap up our session today. So if you have any more, go ahead and get them in. What are the benefits of DevOps?
Well, that's what I call a good question, right? So what are the benefits of DevOps? Well, there isn't one, but we already discussed about many of them. So the first thing is, like I said, we live in a world where applications are continuously developing and changing at a pace that we can't even fathom, okay? Every organization wants to upgrade their application and provide with new features to their customers as soon as possible. Well, that's the primary benefit of DevOps. It uses agile practices so it can deliver fast. And fast is what we need in today's world. It helps you do those faster deployments. It helps you reduce your manual efforts. It helps you make your team collaborate with each other a lot. It can, you can achieve measurable goals out of it. So there are many, many different benefits of Azure DevOps. But if you ask me one single, the primary one, it's the faster outcome that it delivers.
Thank you. And I think this was pretty early in our webinar, so you probably covered it, but what's the main differences in relationship between Agile and DevOps?
So the relationship is Agile methodology is a part of DevOps. So DevOps is this whole umbrella term, and within DevOps lies Agile. So the kind of practices that we perform within DevOps, they are all related to Agile. Agile in itself is a software development methodology, you can say. This is how a software should be developed. In DevOps, what we are doing, we are developing applications, software development methodology. That is what Agile is. So in the umbrella term called DevOps, Agile is a section which helps you develop your application in a better manner, in a current manner, which is required.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to take a couple more questions and then we will wrap up. So why has DevOps gained so much prominence over the last few years?
Well, the answer is something that we already discussed. Why it has gained so much prominence? Because, like I said, we are evolving. In IT, in terms of technology, we are evolving, right? You see applications, you see websites such as Netflix, which is releasing a movie maybe every other week as of now. We have Prime Video, which is doing that. We have Amazon.com, which is producing so many different products every single minute. So we live in a world where technology is evolving at a very fast pace. And for that, and to include, and to be at par with our competitors, we have to use technologies which provides with faster outcomes. And the solution for that is DevOps. That's why we are using it. That's why it has gained the prominence.
Thank you. And what are some of the anti-patterns or myths around DevOps?
Well, some of the anti-patterns or myths around DevOps can be that DevOps is a product or it's a software that you can install in your system. It's not. It's, like I said, it's an umbrella term. It's not a singular entity. When people, processes, and products combine together and provide you with value to the customer in a quicker manner, then in its all essence, it becomes DevOps. DevOps is also not just Agile. It's also not just software deployment. It's a combination of all of them. So these are some of the myths around it.
Okay, and it looks like we have one more question. What are the foundation pillars of DevOps?
So the foundation pillar of DevOps is, you can say, first of all, how much value do you provide to the customers, to the business, security, reliability, of course, Your whole DevOps setup should be secure and reliable enough. It should be optimized in terms of cost, so that should be there. It can be agile in nature so that you can quickly do modifications and you can revert back changes whenever you require. So these are some of the fundamental pillars of Azure DevOps.
Thank you. And with that, we are actually through all of our questions. So I just want to thank you all for joining us today. If you do come up with any additional questions, you can feel free to send them to us at webinar@netcomlearning.com at any time. And once you exit today's session, please do take a moment to fill out our short survey. It really helps us understand your learning experience and needs so we can improve our future sessions. We hope that you found today's webinar to be informative, and we look forward to seeing you back here with us very soon. Also, feel free to tell your friends and colleagues about our webinars and other courses. Once again, thank you everyone, and have a wonderful day.